From Studio 226 in Orlando, this is Aging Smarter. Aging Smarter is a podcast focusing on making it easier to grow older, to prepare for the future at any age. We aim to educate, we aim to entertain, prepare, and amaze you about your life's journey, regardless of your age. I'm your host, retired and former circuit judge, Jose Rodriguez. Today, we're talking about something that sits at the crossroads of federal and state law, veterans' guardianship. It's an area that can be confusing, but also fascinating. And to unpack it, to help us here, I'm joined by one of my law students, Mercedes Da Silva, a student who has done a bit of research on the topic. Welcome, Mercedes. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. This is one of those topics that doesn't get much spotlight.
You're right.
But I thought it was interesting for me because my father, Jose Da Silva, is a veteran.
There's another Jose.
And I know there are many people who have veterans in their lives, but So it's important for anyone working with veterans or caring for one to know how VA guardianship interacts with Florida guardianship.
Absolutely. So let's start with the big picture. When we talk about veterans guardianship, we're really talking about two overlapping systems: the federal law through the Department of Veterans Affairs and state guardianship law.
You're right. They don't always line up perfectly. On the federal side, the VA administers benefits under Title 38 of the U.S. Code. This law states that is the same across all 50 states. Very consistent. But guardianship law, that varies from each individual state.
That's right. No way, Jose. Exactly. Each state has its own process, its own procedures, and even those who have adopted the uniform guardianship laws, unlike Florida, still put their own spin on it. So you have this interesting mix of federal uniformity and state diversity.
This can create both efficiency and confusion.
You betcha. You are not wrong at all about that. So, you know what? Let's walk through what happens on the VA side first. The VA can decide that a veteran isn't able to manage their own benefits. That's called an adjudication of incompetence.
And that doesn't mean the veteran loses all decision-making power, right?
Correct. The VA's finding is very limited. It only affects management of VA benefits. When that happens to that person, the VA appoints what's called a fiduciary, someone who manages those VA payments for the veteran on the veteran's behalf, and that fiduciary is required to make sure that decisions that are made in their best interest.
So that fiduciary handles the money, but the veteran still gets to make personal decisions. Things like health care, living arrangements, and day-to-day life.
Exactly. It's not the same as a state court declaring someone legally incapacitated. The VA fiduciary system is really designed to be a less restrictive alternative, a way to protect benefits without stripping someone of their independence.
I really like that distinction. It respects the veteran's autonomy, but still provides a safety net where needed.
That's right. But you know, sometimes a veteran needs more help, not just with money, but with personal care and decision-making. And that's where the state system steps in.
That's right. Where there's a plenary guardianship might come in, especially under Florida Chapter 744 of the Florida statutes.
Exactly. You know, in Florida, a plenary guardianship means that the court appoints someone to handle both property and personal decisions. The process starts with a petition that has to be verified or sworn to, usually accompanied by a VA certificate of incompetency. Then an examining committee of 3 persons evaluates the person that's under review, and there's a formal hearing.
So it's a full judicial process with due process protections built in.
Absolutely. The goal is to make sure that no one loses any civil rights unnecessarily, and it's about balancing protection with independence.
And there's another layer here. The VA stays involved even when the state court takes over, right?
Correct. Yes, by law, the Secretary of Veterans Affairs is a party in interest to many of these proceedings. That means the VA must get notice at least 15 days before any hearing if something could affect the veteran's estate or the veteran's benefits.
So the VA and the court are really partners in this process, not competitors.
Nope, that's correct. The law is pretty detailed. Guardians have to post bond, file inventory, submit annual accountings to both the VA and to the court. There are strict rules to prevent conflict of interest, and every major financial move, like selling real estate, requires court approval.
That's good to hear. It protects veterans from potential exploitation and keeps everything transparent.
Absolutely, that's right. And there's one more important safeguard. VA benefits are protected by federal law from being seized by creditors. That's in 38 U.S.C. Section 5301. It protects those benefits for the veteran and for their dependents.
It's a really thoughtful system when you look at how the pieces fit together. The VA side provides the flexibility, and the state side ensures oversight and due process.
Exactly. Together they create a dual system that prioritizes the veteran's welfare. The VA fiduciary framework helps preserve autonomy, while the state guardianship steps in only when broader decision-making needs to be supported.
It's a great example of how the law can serve people with both structure and compassion.
Well said, Mercedes. That's really what Aging Smarter is all about. Understanding how these systems work so families and professionals and veterans themselves can make informed choices.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great talking about VA benefits and guardianship with you.
Well, thank you, Mercedes. This was a terrific conversation and the fruit of you doing quite a bit of research. I appreciate that, and I'm sure so do the viewers and listeners. I hope it helps our listeners that veterans guardianships aren't just about red tape. They're about dignity, they're about protection, and respect.
Exactly.
And that's all for today for this episode of Aging Smarter Veterans Benefits. If you found this helpful, share it with a friend or a family member, someone who supports a veteran. I'm Judge Rodriguez, thanking you for joining us, and until the next time, stay informed, stay tuned, and keep aging smarter. Remember, this is not intended to be legal advice. You should always contact a licensed member of the Florida Bar for a particular discussion of your situation. Remember, not to forget to like us and to subscribe. We will see you soon, and at this point, let me say thank you to our producer, Annie Rodriguez-Newburn, our Emmy-winning showrunner, Art Miles, and until our next podcast, thanks for watching, thanks for listening.